Good evening and welcome to Ham Radio Network. We're very excited. This evening we have the famous Hollywood producer Peter Vekinis, who's going to tell us about operating from a 1929 Ford Model A, amongst other things. And I'm very excited to learn about this because vintage cars are a particular fascination of mine. Peter, over to you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Well, what's interesting is I sort of started getting some classic cars, pre-war cars, because I really liked them. I also bought an Austin 7 from 1932, a little convertible one, similar to the one that's in the movie A Matter of Who, or could be the same car. Anyway, this was an old movie with Terry Thomas. This is a tiny car with, I think, a small engine. I don't know much about it yet, but I will go pick it up next week. Peter Jones is going to help me in that. But apart from the Austin 7, I have two Ford Model A's. I want to talk about the videos you're going to see first because I'm not next to them right now. So I pre-recorded two videos, one on the convertible Model A, the Roadster from 1929, with a modified electrical system, having 12 volts negative ground. And the other one is on a follow-on Model A I have from 1930, which is the original 6-volt electrical system with a positive ground and a generator instead of an alternator. So I recorded these two videos. We might as well jump right into them and see if you can enjoy them. Let me share, first of all, the screen here so you can see it better. There we go. And then the first video is down here. Here is my 1929 Ford Model A. The 1920s car all had 6-volt batteries. With the ground was a positive, completely different to today's car, where the ground of the car is negative, they're all 12 volts. But in those days, there was 6-volt system. This car has been modified because it has a 12-volt system installed in the engine with a negative ground, just like modern cars. That makes it a lot easier for the antenna and radio installation. In the car, I've installed the modern radio, and the antenna system is installed in the rear bumper, because in those years, bumpers were all made of steel, and steel is a very good grounding system. So this is the rear bumper of the Ford Model A. I got this bracket made, which is steel, connected with another piece of steel and bolts and nuts to hold it sandwiched around the metal bumper of the car, so I don't have to make any holes. And to make sure the ground is properly made, I've put a ground strap connected to the ground of the car. As you notice, the car is under repainting, so therefore it's kind of in pieces, but you can still see the ground strap and the ground bumper. And on this bumper, I've installed a 1950s Master Mobile Mounts antenna mount, which was made in those years. And on this antenna mount, which comes with a standard 3/8 24 thread, which is very hard to get in Europe because Europe is metric. But in case you didn't know, all mobile antennas currently available, they're almost all 3/8 of an inch width and 24 grooves per inch in the thread. So you need a 3/8 24. And on that, I've installed a ferrule, and in the ferrule, I've got some steel, which is cut for the 10-meter band. Additionally, I've also installed the wiring to be able to adjust this with a coil, an adjustable coil, so I can adjust it for other bands as needed. So this is basically the antenna installation in the Model A. I also have space on this bumper on this side, of course, to do another antenna installation if I wanted to. But I think it's nice to keep it simple, because let's face it, in 1929, there was very few transmitting development, and none of them ran in a mobile installation.
no way back then to get the high voltage required power the valves for the final amplifiers of the transmitters. They didn't know about dynamos, which came later to the Second World War. So there was no real much mobile installation. Mobile installation came out after the Second World War, when a lot of surplus material became available, and people could build their radios in cars. So this is my installation in the Model A Ford, the Roadster.
So this is the
Can you, Peter, can you not talk over your video?
well, I could. I just realized, do you also hear me?
Well, the point is that when the camera is close up, we can just hear you okay. But when the camera pans back, it's very, very difficult.
Well, the next video is louder, so that should be okay. But I can also talk, over it if it's needed.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button and I lost the programming there. So let me share the screen again, and then we can see. So the next video is another play I have, and hopefully this should be better.
So this is a 1930 Ford Model A, the one we just saw previously, 29. It's also a two-door, what they call two-door. And this is an original in every way, including the fact that it has a 6-volt positive ground system. This is a generator in those years. There's a battery on the chassis there that's 6 volts, where the positive is connected to the ground. Now, with positive ground cars, it's especially difficult. Modern radios, which all expect the ground to be negative.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear it fine.
Okay.
So in this case, you would need an additional battery, and you will have to use the chassis as a negative, just with the additional battery, which you connect to nowhere else. And this way you have two separate electric systems, but it doesn't matter, the car will still run fine. Now, the way you would put the antenna here is you would also build a mount, just like the one I showed you for the 29.
I want to put it out to me. I want to watch it.
The real bumper, just like this. Putting the bottom nuts and bolts. And you would, of course, put a ground strap on it. And there you have a ready-made 3/8-24 standard amateur radio antenna mount. And of course, the chassis is the negative, and that works fine. In a more modern car, let's go to the Jeep, for example. I have a 1999 Jeep here. This is more modern, of course, but it's still old compared to today's 24 years old. It comes with the mount, which I've put on the rear, the tailgate of the Jeep, and you have to make holes for that, but okay, it's a Jeep. Again, 3/8-24, and this is fed from the battery, and I've opened the engine compartments, and you can see. The battery is over here, there are fuses everywhere, of course. There's an extra cable to charge the car when it's parked. And after the fuses, the plus and minus cables move towards the compartment through this firewall access, because the Jeep has an easy firewall access. Most cars don't, and that's a problem, of course. But there's always ways to put the wires into the passenger compartment. In this case, the Jeep has a VHF and UHF radio and an HF radio, and the antennas I have for the Jeep is the Outback, which is no, I don't think it's made anymore, but it's a very nice antenna, because in one antenna you have all the bands that clearly identified. You have the 80-meter band, you have the 40, the 30, 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10. And all you need to do is you take the what they call wonder lead, you just plug it into another port and it becomes a 15-meter antenna. Or if you plug it into the, say, 10-meter, because the 10-meter band is doing very well with propagation you have, with the 12-meter band as well, then of course it becomes a 12-meter antenna. This is the Outback is made in Australia. There is a different SGC antenna made by a company in Washington State. There are antennas you can build yourself. For example, I built this myself with parts you can just get in any hardware store. I'll show you how it's done this. You basically have rods. This is a thin rod with a bigger rod. And what you need to do is you need to hammer with a knife edge onto the rod to actually attach them together. And because this is bigger than the other one, you can then fit the next piece, making different lengths for the antenna you want. For example, the 20-meter band requires a 5-meter long antenna, more or less. And then all you need to do is you need to attach one on top of another, going towards the magic 5 meters, or 3.5 meters if it's for 15 and so on. And at the bottom, you make a mount that's attaches to 3/8/24. And that's something you can easily do. Most people don't realize that. Including, for example, here. This is a standard rod onto which have been welded nuts on both ends that are 3/8/24. This is 3/8/24. This side's 3/8/24. And now you have a base mount for your antenna with 3/8/24, and 3/8/24 is the standard gauge for amateur radio. I think every company uses 3/8/24 except Chinese makers who I believe are using a metric system. So with a metric system, you cannot really handle intermixing antenna parts. But it's very easy to get 3/8/24 because you just need to order a dowel like this, and then you cut it for the lengths of the pieces you want. This is 3/8/24. You can then use it, for example, in here, as I said, they're all standard sizes. It goes right in it, and then you can have your own bolts made of 3/8/24. There are, of course, many, many antennas. This is one of them that I particularly like. It's to be installed on a window. So if we wanted to install it here, you put it over the window pane, you latch it closed, you close the window of the car, really a more modern car, and then all of a sudden you have an antenna which you can take off when you get home. No problem whatsoever. It works great on 2 meters and 70 centimeter band. This is an antenna mount. There's also a glass mount onto which you glue on glass without making any holes between the outside and the inside of the car. So this is also a 2 meter, 70 centimeters from MFJ. It's only $20, so probably 20 pounds, 20 euros plus VAT. And for those that have real steel bumpers, you can also get a bumper mount where the strap is turned around the bumper, tightened, and then here is the antenna base, which is again 3/8/24. There are many, many solutions for putting amateur radio in cars. This is my solutions. In all the cars we have amateur radio. We have for VHF, UHF. I like listening to airplanes, so I can also listen to airplanes. And I've also installed 3/8/24 bases in the back, so I can use HF while I drive. It's not a very difficult thing to do, and I suggest it's something you can all try while driving, especially today with all these restrictions on antenna structures in private cars.
So this was okay, sorry. Okay, so this was the some of the antennas I've used on these old classic cars. There's a couple more I'd like to talk to you about, which I have here. You may not be used to them. One is this one here. This is a standard mount for a pipe that goes in here. It has two attachments to put an antenna on one side and on the other. And then you have a portable dipole. Very easy to use dipole. You put a pipe through here, and then you screw in two mobile antennas, and then you have a dipole. And the antennas that you would screw are just like these ones, made by MFJ. It's the MFJ 1979. And this one opens up, extends to a full size 20-meter quarter wavelength. So all you need is two of these. You just attach them to both ends of the mount. And then all of a sudden you have a dipole that you can take down, and this is the length you have. Doesn't give you any problem with the neighbors whatsoever. Another one that I've built myself is based on these pliers. I don't have a welder, but a friend of mine does. This bracket came from an IKEA cabinet. I enlarged the hole to put the antenna mount on it. He welded it here, as you can see. And then all of a sudden you can then go to any pipe anywhere and you just attach this pliers onto it, and then you have a mount. This is the mount that I was showing you in the car. This is basically two metal brackets with 4 holes that I've made to put the bolts through. This was the difficult part. As I said, it comes from a company that no longer exists, hasn't existed in many, many years. It's called Master Mobile Mounts. This is very interesting because I found out about them in an ad. A friend of mine and myself drove to the place. It was in Indiana. And there, lo and behold, was a Mercury from 1956 used by a radio amateur with all the equipment still in it. He had a Heathkit SB101, a Heathkit linear amplifier, the power supplies, 2 of these mounts installed on the actual car. So he had made holes. Lots of attachments, tuners, you name it. And I found it hard to believe that in 2018, there was still a car available from the 1950s with still the radio installation of that time. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Not only about classic cars, but about these antenna installations that I do a lot when I'm on holiday. I always take wires and metals and everything, and I always play around with antennas because radios have become so complicated today that you cannot really build them yourself. You could, I suppose, build something simple. But the most exciting thing for me is antennas, because let's face it, antennas haven't changed in many years. The quarter wavelength is still a quarter wavelength 60 years later. So I think that's where I really like playing and trying to improve my signal. So thank you for your attention, and thank you for inviting me.
Goodness gracious, thank you so much. That's really interesting. Thank you. I've got one question, if I may. As an ex-CB operator, before it was legalized in the UK, to be quite honest, I used to love the Fire Stick antenna. And they're amazing things, but the thread on the bottom is 3/8 UNF. I don't know how many turns per inch it is, but is UNF the same profile that you recognize for your 24-turn 3/8 thread?
Yeah, they are all completely compatible. The UNF is 24.
Okay.
I made a mistake because I was looking for a tap and die set of 3/8 24. I found a company in the UK that does it. I bought from them, and they sent me a 3/8 26. So I thought, well, it's close enough, but unfortunately, it's not the same.
No.
You can put it in a little bit, but at some point, it doesn't go in further.
Yeah, and you'll never get it out.
Yeah. So you really need 3/8 24. Like I said, the only antenna I found that isn't is this Chinese one I have. For some reason, the Chinese either don't want to or don't have the tooling available to do this standard. But now you brought an interesting point. What does UNF mean?
I used to know, but I honestly can't remember. I'm sure somebody will Google it.
Because the catalog this company sent me, which somewhere around here, has a lot of these 3-letter codes. And unfortunately to me, I don't know what they mean. I mean, and I didn't Google them, unfortunately.
Well, I know that BSP, Bravo Sierra Papa, that you see a lot, is British Standard Pipe thread.
Oh, okay.
There's a few more, but I can't remember. I guess somebody might chime in with that in a minute. David G4NOW has asked a question. Peter, do you suffer from ignition noise with your vintage vehicles when mobile? Is it worse than the Jeep?
Well, first of all, in these classic cars, there was no such thing as resistor spark plugs. So, of course, you have ignition noise. But I've tried the ICOM 7100. I've tried the Yaesu FD817. I've tried, well, VHF, UHF aren't really bothered. And I've tried the ICOM 7000, and they all have a noise blanket that really reduces it. I think the 7100, the ICOM, is the best noise blanket. It almost eliminates it, but it's still there when you suddenly accelerate because it has to catch up to the new, you know, the faster sparking noise. Sure. Interestingly enough, hybrids are a lot worse. One of the car we have is a hybrid, and when we drive anywhere, you can really not use HF unless you're going downhill and then you coast, then it works fine.
Oh, that's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, we've got a Leaf. We got an E-Class, a turbo diesel, but also a Leaf. And I must say, we don't get any interference at all. I can listen on HF and I've not heard anything at all, which is very good news. So 2 people have pointed out UNF actually stands for Unified Fine Pitch.
Oh, okay.
So we live and learn, don't we?
Well, we do. Well, a friend of mine told me in the US that when we go to a do-it-yourself DIY store, he said that it's coarse and fine. People don't talk in terms of 24. So
okay.
If I'm looking for 24, I have to ask for fine.
Yeah, but 26 is going to be even finer, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think you need to specify exactly the number.
I think you're absolutely right. So David said, thank you for the answer about interference. And David has also shared a link to an Austin 7 Owners Club that you might find interesting.
Thank you. That's good.
In the chat. So does anybody else have any questions? I think I've got a couple more, but I don't want to hog it.
I haven't, but I get fascinated every time I listen. every time I've had one of your talks, Peter, I've always learned something. So yeah, it's interesting. I always find them interesting.
Well, I think each one of us has things that they like doing, and it's good that we're able to share all this knowledge we pick up. Like I said, I love playing with antennas and stuff. So now, for example, I found an article in a 1950s magazine that talks about using 3 quarter wave vertical antennas and creating a vertical beam, which I haven't tried it yet. I only found the article recently from a magazine. And I'm going to basically do what they said in the 1950s. And I have 3 of these antennas here, which are their full-size quarter wavelength, 20 meter and below. And I'm going to try what they said. They all share the same ground.
Wow.
You have to create one, must be the reflector, which needs to be longer. So from that, as I said, I bought this tap and die set. So here I created 3/8 24 thread. On the other side, there's a thread onto which I've put a nut. So then I can use this to extend my antenna and create a reflector length, which is longer. And once I get the results in one of the meetings coming up, I'll present my findings. I mean, it may be exciting for people going a little holiday and they have a beam antenna.
I think we'd be very interested to hear about that. Yeah, I mean, any kind of new ideas about antennas, you'll always get hams excited, you know. So that Mercury that you mentioned that you found that had all the radio stuff on it, did you buy the whole car just to get the antenna mount? You can tell us.
Actually, it's interesting. I was interested in the car, but it wasn't in a very good shape. I have some pictures, but I have to find them. And of course, when you start saying, oh, you know, could somebody fix the car up, you know, the prices skyrocket. So I realized I wasn't that interested because you can't find a lot of Mercuries. But what was really fascinating was that this car was in somebody's garage exactly as it was left. Judging from the Heathkit age, which came out in the mid-60s, was probably left like that since probably the 70s. And he had remained in that garage exactly the same since then. And the gentleman drove it basically on his own, because in the footwell of the passenger was a huge tuner, which I have, a Johnson kilowatt tuner, and he had built extensions for the knobs so he can reach them while driving, you know.
No, goodness.
Yes, so he had done that, and I have the tuner, I got the extension rods, and I mean the amount of work this gentleman had put in to create this. And I was fascinated that in 2018 this was a little time capsule from, you know, 50 years before.
Gosh, it's remarkable. Yeah, I had something else. Let someone else have a go. Has anybody else got any questions? Let me think what I was going to ask.
Yeah, just a quick one, Pete. Give me a buzz when you're ready, and we'll try and sort something out for this chummy. Got a few ideas, but we need to sort of sort things out.
Yes, thank you. Well, as I said, it's from a garage in Guildford. I need to find out, well, first of all, it's in good condition. I mean, obviously. Should we drive it to Dover? That's the question. Or is it not so good for the car to do whatever 100 miles? What kind of rules are there? I mean, you can obviously cannot just take a car in the street. You need to have insurance for 2 days. I suppose you need to have a registration somehow for the 2 days. So those are the kind of things I'm going to call you. But you're back on the 15th, so I'm going to call you after that, obviously.
Yeah. Okay then. Cheers, Pete.
So one way around not having an MOT, so an MOT inspection in the UK is a roadworthiness check that's done by a specially qualified garage. And you can drive anything without an MOT on the road if you're driving to an appointment for an MOT test.
Oh.
So if you make an appointment for an MOT test near where you're going to, you don't need an MOT.
However,
Oh,
would it not be MOT exempt? How old is it?
It's from 1932.
It will be exempt.
exempt from an MOT. I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, these cars I showed you are exempt from MOT here as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, they have insurance, but
sure. Wow. That's very, I never knew. I've learned something today.
well, I also found out that you can drive it in the center of London without this congestion charge. So.
Yeah. So here's the legislation on it. You do not need to get an MOT if the vehicle was built or first registered more than 40 years ago, and no substantial changes have been made to the vehicle in the last 30 years. For example, replacing the chassis, body, axles, or engine to change the way the vehicle works.
So that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
And you don't need road tax. You're exempt from road tax if you're over 40 years old. So, and same as you, Les, and all that. So
I just need to get insurance for the 2 days or 1 day.
Yeah, yeah.
There are companies that specialize in that, Pete.
Oh, okay.
So where are you taking it to, Peter? So you're getting it from Guildford to where?
To Dover.
To Dover.
Yeah.
And then where's it going then? You're getting it on the ferry and...
Then I'll put it on the ferry, and on the other side, I'll have my car with the trailer, so I can put it on the trailer and bring it.
Okay, right.
Because I looked in the prices of ferry boats with a trailer, and they're like astronomical, by the way.
Right.
Wow. What about Eurotunnel?
Well, I didn't think of Eurotunnel. I mean, I don't have I didn't think about it. I thought it would be more expensive than the ferry. I'm retired. I mean, I don't have to be anywhere at any specific time.
Sure. So we went to Belgium recently and found Eurotunnel was a lot cheaper than the ferry. Yeah. But we didn't have a trailer, of course. We just had a normal white car. So.
Well, I will not have a trailer. It's just a car. And on the other side, when it comes out in Dover, that's where my trailer and car will be.
Right. Gotcha.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So what you need then? So what you need
Yeah.
I'll go on to David in a moment, who's just sharing with us. So what you need then, Peter, is, I mean, getting it to Dover, you can even pay and have it trailered up to Dover if you're unsure about the brakes and the mechanics of it all and whether it's actually. But the key fundamental part of the transition into getting to your trailer on the other side, you need that car fully functioning to get loaded onto the boat or Eurotunnel and off.
Exactly. Yeah. But I was told it works fine. I mean, the car is in good shape.
Oh, right. Oh, okay then.
It's not it's like the cars I showed you, and I found it by chance. So
Yeah. Okay.
from a specialist in classic pre-war cars.
Yeah.
Who's in Guildford.
Right. Oh, well then it's not an issue, is it? Who's driving it? You driving it then, Peter?
Well, I don't know. I would rather put it on a trailer and get somebody to move it, but I need to see how much it will cost. Not because I cannot drive it, it's because I'd rather check it and make sure everything is fine. So, you know, we don't drive and then your brakes disappear and then you have a whole set of new issues to worry about. I mean, these are old cars.
Anybody in the Dover Club got a trailer?
I don't know who's got one. Has Rue got one? Rue must have a trailer.
Rue's got one, hasn't he?
I'm sure Rue's got a trailer. Yeah.
As well as his vintage car.
Yeah.
But then you also need a car with a trailer hitch. So
Yeah, he's got one of them, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. Let's have a word with him on Thursday at the club and see where we're at with it. Yeah.
thank you. Well,
There might be somebody who is a bit of a, mind you, is whether he decides that he wants to make you an offer on it.
no, not for sale. I look forward to using this car. I fell in love with the Austin 7, the chummy, the little one. It looks like such a fun car to drive around.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So David is sharing his screen.
Oh, can you see it? The
Yes.
car.
So see,
Yes, we can.
It's an also. I thought Peter might be interested. It's my brother's Austin 12-4. It's 1928. Obviously,
Nice.
it's the big daddy of the Austin family. But it would be ideal for mobile. It's got a chauffeur's compartment, and he has a speaking tube back to the cab back. So, but if you need any help, Peter, on Austins, I happen to know quite a lot about them. I don't own this car, I've driven it. And so there's a lot of interest in Austins and several, there's something called the Austin Register, but that Austin link I've sent, if you need spares, that is worth knowing because the Austin Chum is a great car. That's all it was, just to show you a bit of fun.
thank you, very nice. And thank you for the link.
Yeah, okay, bye.
There's an interesting story you brought up about the separate driver. There is an American in the 1940s had built what at the time was one of the largest caravans available. He wrote a book. His name was Myron Zobel. I found out about it in a very old magazine again, and I got very interested in it. And then what happened is there's an interesting, very funny story in that his driver, he had a separate truck in the front, and then the trailer was in the back. And this was a long trailer. It had a bar in it. It had a place for a chef to sleep, as well as the owners. And his driver was also a radio amateur. And one day he was driving and he had his headphones on and he was talking to a radio amateur in Chile. And then from Chile, he got another frequency to talk to a radio amateur in South Africa. So now the guy keeps ringing the bell instead of a tube to ask the driver to do something. But of course, nobody's replying because he had his headphones on. So then the owner, who was also a radio amateur, turned his radio on, found the frequency, broke into his frequency, and told the guy, "Can you take your headphones on because I need you to do something?" So I thought that's a funny story.
Yeah, brilliant. You were talking about driving your car. I think an Austin 7 would struggle in traffic here. I would get it trailered if I were you.
Oh, yeah.
So, it would be all right if you could do it on a Sunday very early or something. But if you hit the traffic here is immense at present, and the braking's not brilliant on the Chummy. I think it's only got a front brake from memory. I don't know if it's got 4 brakes, so just be slightly cautious. We have to, with the big Austin, it's called an Austin Ranelagh, the big one, you know, you have to sort of think ahead like an ocean tanker to try and stop. And that one's got fairly good brakes, and you have to use the handbrake as well to try and stop the thing. Great car, the Austin 7, fabulous.
Well, thank you for that. But that reminds me, last October we did a rally with this car with a Roadster, 1,000 kilometers over mountains over 5 days, and one was a very big descent. It was like a 18% grade. And you can push the brakes as much as you can, but the car is not going to stop because it's all manual. You know, so I had to put it in first gear, and slowly at 5 kilometers an hour, it went down the mountain. Everybody overtook me, of course. So you're right. It's I forgot about these old cars. I mean, they're not like today. They're not going to break. So I also believe it's better to put it on a trailer.
I think so. You know, driving in America, you've got, you know, wider, bigger roads, and, you know, you can sort of, it's easier here, but it's frenetic traffic at present. We did get that car trailered to Wales, so I might be able to find somebody who's used to trailering it for you.
Okay, thank you.
When do you plan to do that? Is it a long?
Well, it's going to be next week. This weekend, my wife was also a radiometer. She's a sculptor, and we're having an exhibition in Stuttgart, in Germany. So we're going to be doing this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then next week we'll be here. And that's when I hope to drive over and go over and see Peter and Jean, and then go see my daughter who lives in London, and do it then.
Yeah, maybe you could contact the Austin the Austin 7 link I gave you, and they'll probably recommend somebody there. Probably our guy was quite up country, so, you know, be a great contact if you know, they'll be very helpful to you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any more questions? Andy, you haven't asked anything yet.
Yeah, I've got a question. I've always got a question. Peter, going back to this vertical beam you're gonna build, have you got any information about it yet, or are you still looking for information?
No, I have the information. Hold on, just bear with me. I have a paper here which I photocopied as my guide.
The reason why I'm asking is I'm looking at something here about a guy who built a 2-element beam, like you're planning for 3. He had a reflector and a driven element. He's got them about 12 feet apart, which is about 3 and a bit meters apart. And he reckons by adding the reflector, it gave him an extra 3 dB. So I'm not quite sure how much you'll get by sticking the director on the front, but it should be at least 5. So I thought you'd get at least 5 dB gain.
Well, basically, what I have to do, it's relatively easy to put this up. Basically, you have the driven element quarter wave up, you have a ground plane, and then the 2 pieces of wire that's part of the ground plane you attach on the director and the reflector, and then you have to sort of adjust distances and so on. And that's where my wife is going to drive off a few miles away, and then we will adjust it that way using a VHF radio. First of all, I need to see, is it really 6 dB? Is it 1 S point? Is it 2 S points? I don't know.
Yeah.
In those years, all they say here is, oh, it works very well. This was done in January 1966 in 73 magazine. This is the article.
Gosh, might you be able to scan that and send it to us, Peter?
Yes, I could. Of course, I could.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. And we'll share it with the Ham Radio Network. If you send it to Andy, you've probably got his contact details, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can send it to Peter Jones. You can give it to everybody.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Okay, so that width, I think you said it's a 10-meter width on the back of the first car you showed us.
Yeah.
I mean, do you leave that on while you're driving? How much does that swing about and smack pedestrians in the face?
No, it doesn't swing that much. It's actually steel. It's relatively thick. It's just like an old CB whip. I mean, the speed of the Model A is, 30 miles an hour. So at that speed, it's not going to move much. and it's cut for quarter wave length. And then, as I said, I have this coil, adjustable coil, also from that car, this old Mercury that I found, which you can attach to 12 volts, and you can move this coil left and right and adjust the whip to different bands or different parts of the band. So you have perfect SWR. Today's HF radios are solid state, and if they don't see a perfect SWR, you're not going to be doing a good job. They bring the power down very quickly.
Sure.
In those years, of course, everything was with valves, so even a 3-to-1 wouldn't make much difference.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why ICOM can charge us 500 quid for an external tuner to make your antenna work, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Any more questions? No. Okay. So Andy, are you listening?
Yeah, I'm still listening, mate.
Oh, I thought you'd gone.
No, I'm still listening. No, I'm here. I'm about to head off. But if we're, I'm aware of the time. So if you want to wrap things up, that's absolutely fine. If nobody's got any more questions, but it's great to get you on again, Peter. I'm really
Fascinating.
so yeah. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and we're always learning something. You're always up to something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what keeps life interesting. You got to keep doing things you like. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
of course.
Thank you so much, Pete. We're
You're
very
welcome.
Peter,
Yeah.
you must do a talk once on our TV show.
Oh yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
you've got to do that. Yeah,
You can see Peter Jones 40 years before.
Oh, hang on, you're that Peter, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
we should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a good, interesting evening.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The years when you could do magic very quickly.
You still got some video from that time, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I have lots of them. Yeah. In fact, I also have, for those that know the BBC microcomputer, myself and another guy who's not a radio amateur, we built the disk interface for it, and I have the prototype board here.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's if people remember the BBC micro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the Vigeland drives, the 40 track and 80 track for that.
I remember the Vigeland ones. I
yeah.
had a BBC quite late in the day. At the time when the BBC was out, I had an Acorn Atom.
Oh, nice.
Which was the kind of the baby. I did an electronics apprenticeship with the Ministry of Defence, and part of that you had to build an Acorn Atom from a kit because they did it in kit form.
Oh, wow.
So I built my own Acorn Atom, and I wish I still had it.
Well, I went with my brother. We drove up to Science of Cambridge to get the MK14, which was their first little microcomputer with a little chiclet keyboard and stuff.
Fantastic.
That was in the 77.
You didn't use the ZX81 then?
I do. I also have the ZX80 and 81. Yeah.
I made good money building ZX81 kits for people and selling them. Good money I made in those days.
And if
I had a Dragon 32, I had.
Oh, there was a memory poke you could do on those that destroyed the ULA. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jonathan, do you want to stop the recording?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're nearly there, guys, right?
Yeah, if you stop the recording, it'll make it easier for him to edit.
Okay.
Or John to edit.
Stop.